I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. I'm really glad to be with you. We're having no shortage of technical difficulties today, which is unendingly amusing, triggering, frustrating, amusing. You know, this is the problem with being an energy worker and relying on technology to communicate your work, because whenever we're up to something big, whenever there's a huge transmission about to occur, that's, of course, when we blow up the technology that's supporting it, because technology is just energy. So we are in the process, actually, right now of ironing those things out. My team is on it. And for those of you joining us from my list, we promised a soulful conversation with the deep and gorgeous Ajaya Sommers. And so we are trying to get her on the air, and I anticipate that's going to happen here in the next 5 minutes or so. But until then, we're going to deepen it together. And so let's just do that. You know, my sense is that, of course, there's always medicine in all of this, right? And so I'm curious what the medicine might be as a match for all of us. So let's go ahead and just close our eyes and receive a deep breath together. Yeah, just receive a breath together and begin by collecting your energies up. So wherever your energies are, other than right here, imagine that you can begin extricating yourself from those and leaving the baggage of whatever they are, problems you've been trying to solve, relationships that you've been engaged in. See if you can just let them reside outside your space and collect up just your energies. Right? So feel the pieces of you beginning to make their way back into the center of your head. Yeah, you know, I was, and so the medicine starts to become clear, right? It's like, this is such a metaphor for how many of us are right now in our lives, where, you know, we're heading into the busiest part of the season with Christmas and New Year's and trying to finish up our year-end things. And, you know, for those of us who are mamas, we've got our children about to come home for a couple weeks and finishing up their school programs. And, you know, there's just a lot. And also there's a lot in the field at this time of year. So, you know, people get into trigger and pain around being with their families, and there's so much consumerism and not enoughness around, you know, spending money you don't have for going through motions that mean nothing and just all of that, right? So there's all of that. And for me, the essence of this experience with Ajaya is it's something so beautifully aligned that I really desire to give to you, and it should be really easy, And she and I are also really close friends and, have been trying to even just connect for a conversation. And so what we were just doing on the phone was being really frustrated that here's a stupid technology that we have to go through to actually have the ease of this soulful connection. That's the really important thing. And as I tuned into myself, what I got present to is, that's a story that I have about a lot of things, that it should be easier than it is. And, I can see and sense the grace and ease that's wanting to align. And yet there's this unexplained turbulence in between me and the ease, And I was just speaking this morning to my magic school students about us being the originator of the vibration. So instead of living our lives in reaction, which is really what most people do, right, is we, we're on our path, we're doing our work, and then we come up against a mean person in the world, or, our families who maybe don't share the same lens of consciousness that we do, or whatever that looks like. And, we get grumpy and it's like, oh, they make it hard and it's them. And in reality, everything outside of us is just a reflection of what's inside of us. So if you're having a lack of ease and grace, connecting with what you desire, it's because there's something in you that says, I can't actually have that. I'm not really available for that. There's all of this stuff in the way. And so let's just take a moment and see, what if we could align our systems with actual ease and grace? And so I'd like you to imagine that as you tune into your space, all of the static that's in there. If you could imagine that you have an energetic vacuum cleaner. So give it a big bubble container and then a hose that you can go in there and just suck out all of this old static that says this time of year has to be busy and difficult and stressful, energies that aren't yours, of other stressful people that you've just been in relationship with. Yeah. Go ahead and just start cleaning your space out. Yeah, and make sure you get all the nooks and crannies, even to the back. Yep, clean that all out. Good. Feels like there's a little more, even up by your shoulders. Excellent. Great. And now imagine, what if you could create a foundation or lay some groundwork for ease in your space, right? So instead of it being this jaggedy static, what if you could lay down something really smooth? Like I'm kind of imagining like satin or silk, or like a comfy, warm, fuzzy blanket that I might lay on. Go ahead and just imagine that. Create your space however you would like it to be if it felt like ease and grace. I'm even imagining like some valet waiters. Yeah, like some valet waiters who could come in and they could give me anything I need. Yeah, so let's imagine that happening. Yeah, and I'm also giving myself a magic wand. So if something shows up in my space that I don't like, I can just use my magic wand and it gives me a pass on anything that would feel hard. Beautiful. Good, good, good. All right. So this is one you can come back to throughout this holiday season. As you start to feel like you've gotten pulled out of your zone or you're hitting up against some static, and then you can just come back to being the originator of what's occurring rather than fighting with what is or fighting with what you unconsciously created. Beautiful. Okay. Great. So I think we are actually ready. And let's just see if we can do this. Hi, Ajaya. This is Jody. Can you hear me? Okay, I can't actually hear you. Let's see. All right, love, I cannot hear you. Just make sure you're not muted on your end, just in case. Okay, that is interesting. Maybe there's something maybe we're not supposed to have this conversation, although I really, really want to. So I'm going to hang up and try one more time. All right, so we'll just try one more time, see if we can have this work. Everybody cross your fingers, ground the space. Okay, yep, looks like there's another glitch that has popped up. Okay, so, very curious. All right, hold on one second. This is worth it. This is worth it because I really want to get Ajaya on here. So let's just see if it could happen. And put it through one more time. Maybe it's a lesson about hopelessness. Maybe it's a lesson about patience. Maybe it's a lesson about fucking technology. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. We're getting closer. All right. So while we are waiting for the call to come through again, let's just see. I'm just going to let you know that we are actually taking a break. And so we are going to be not doing a live show next week, which is Christmas Eve, or the week after, which is New Year's Eve. So this is our last show for this year, for 2014. And then we'll be back together again the first Wednesday of January. So for those of you who are regular listeners, we will miss you. And also we have a whole archive of shows that we've done over these last 8 months or so. And so you are welcome to go listen to any that you've missed or re-listen to any of your favorites. And that's a beautiful way to get to, to play and the energetics of this if you want supported throughout the holiday season. So, all right, I'm going to do one more text to try again here. And then we're going to move on to some other topic that wants to be talked about. So we'll just see how it goes here. Okay. All right, so we need 2 minutes. Viv's working on a fix. Yeah, okay, great. So let's have 2 minutes. Let me just deepen in and see what I want to share. I mean, okay, so what wants to be shared in me right now is what do you do when your system's just irritated? Because that's what's happening for me is like, I want to be calm and yet I actually feel annoyed as shit. It's like my system wants to be mad at somebody, like somebody should have fixed this. So I'm actually just in the irritation of it in the moment. And Ajay is potentially calling back in. Let's just hope this works. Let's see. Ajaya, are you there?
Yes.
Oh my God, I can hear you.
Ready? It's Viv. I have you on my cell phone, so I'm just letting you know if a call comes in on my cell phone, it's going to bump you guys off. So I'm hoping this just flows smoothly, okay?
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, love.
Let's bubble around each other. I'm going to go on mute so you guys can talk. Love you both.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yay. That was Viv, everybody. They don't usually get to hear her voice, but yay, you got to hear Viv today. Wonderful. Oh, hello, Ajaya. I was just telling them how irritated I was, and we were feeling into that, but I'm less irritated because here you are.
We did it. We made it through the technology labyrinth.
We totally did. We had already, I think, jumped out ahead into the field of love and beingness that we were going to be enjoying, and then we just had to slog through some density to arrive here.
It can be like that.
It can be like that. That is true. Okay, so I haven't even officially introduced you, so I'm going to do that now. And
Great.
For everyone listening who doesn't know, we did an experience in September. It was a month-long, amazing, beautiful experience. It was called the Woman Come Undone experience. And we actually just re-released the sessions from those on our tarot card site. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can go play over there. It's magic with a K, MAGIK school.com/come undone. All right. So if you haven't caught up, you can do that. Also, if you're on my list, you already got the tarot card that actually goes with Ajaya now, as well as the link to the recording of the session that we did together. So I'm just going to catch you up really quickly, kind of on what the context is for this reconnection, and then also a little bit about who Ajaya is. So in the Woman Come Undone experience, we had 13 new paradigm leaders. Like, these are women who are top of their field, who are highly qualified and capable and discerning in the field that they are an expert in. And they agreed to come and play with me in the space of vulnerability and truth. And, just starting with what was up with them. And then we did a public healing session where everyone could witness messiness in process, right? And it was in the spirit of us undoing the paradigm that's out there that says, like, oh, when you get a following or a list or you reach a certain level, everything's handled and your life is perfect after that, And so so Ajaya and I ended up having this amazing, miraculous drop-in experience that was really one of the highlights for me and also for all of the listeners. It was so soulful and beautiful and emotional and deep, and so many women have referenced that session to me since then. And there's been a desire for the women who listened and who witnessed that experience to hear, like, what happened on the other side of it. What has life been like for these women? What changes happened? How are they now? And so that's the reason that we're doing this show, is to kind of catch everyone up on what's happening. And because we always take it a level deeper, then I also really just want to deepen into a conversation with Ajaya. She is one of my dearest friends, and she also is one of the deepest human beings that I am and have the honor of connecting with. And when she says things, half the time I don't even know what she's talking about, and then my system just opens into some amazing new level of consciousness or awareness, and I think we kind of do that for each other. So I wanted to offer that experience to you as well. So I think that'll suffice for like official, introduction of who Ajaya is. And then the real introduction is to her essence, which is not to be missed. So with that, welcome my dear sister, Ajaya Sommers.
Thank you so much, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
I love that introduction.
Thank you.
Very true. I think we are evolutionary catalysts of love for each other, and I'm so grateful.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to just open the floor for you, since it was a little stressful getting here, and just see if there's anything you'd like to name for yourself, or anything that needs to happen for you to land here.
I'm good. I feel like we made it through that little techno wormhole, and I feel like I'm fairly able to just quickly shed whatever stress arose from that. And I'm just glad we made it, and I feel present and delighted to be here with you, and just in the open space of whatever wants to happen here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Great. Well, then let's start. I'd like to begin our conversation with, just touching base about your experience. So, whether people listen to it or not, I'd like to just kind of start with any reflections you have about what that experience was like for you, what has, arisen or shifted in your life. Let's start there, and, we'll kind of just see, but ultimately I'd like to kind of weave the path of, what does it look like since then? Because I think one of the reasons I really wanted to do the follow-up is because our brains are always looking for the finish line. So even though the whole experience was about undone and this idea that you're never done, there's a way that our egos want to say like, oh, but in that session, she definitely got done, and I'm sure her life is perfect since then. And I know there have been some huge shifts, and also certainly some things that haven't felt perfect. And so that's kind of where I'd like to go with what we're unpackaging here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great to reflect on it, because that was a couple months ago, and life is so accelerated these days. So just even conjuring up that pathway back to that session and what's unfolded. And what comes to me right now, just to say, is, I think there's this way in which, here I am, this role model for embodiment, and I felt like in that session, you were very skillfully navigating a dimension of my being that was not here, that was kind of stuck in this in between worlds places. And there was something about actually being witnessed, sort of like the irony and the beauty of, obviously I think what we teach and what we're passionate about and is our path is obviously where our own work is. So for me, that's certainly been true, that the process of really landing in my body and incarnating my soul has definitely been this, journey this lifetime, and I feel like it will always be an ongoing journey. But something about being exposed and witnessed, in the moment of the session, I wasn't aware of that. I was just with you. But afterwards, there was something really liberating about almost like, the self-image of, having it together, of however people see me, having that just be really raw and getting to show these other parts of myself in process, and that could actually be a gift and medicine for other people. There was just something really beautiful and liberating in the aftermath of that. Almost like the self-image, the self-concept got to be that much more just set free, and a deeper integration of my wholeness. And that was just like one piece of it, and then there was the reality of what we navigated. I just felt so grateful. It's like you came and found me in a place I didn't even know I was lost. I didn't even have a reference. There was just a kind of there was an awareness, there was a feeling in my system, but I was so isolated in it, I didn't even know I was lost. And so that was profound, to be found. and I definitely felt afterwards, like a big chunk, like a big, a deeper landing in the flesh, of not only my body, but of my life, the flesh of the world. And it's been very accelerated since then in terms of the reflection world, and just a lot coming online. And yeah, it's interesting to sit here and reflect. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into. Maybe I'll pause for a moment and just let what I just said sink in and see if you want to respond to any of that.
Yeah, it's really, it's cool to hear it from the other side, because I recently re-listened to all the sessions when I was creating the tarot cards. I went back and listened to the sessions so I could glean like what was the medicine of that session. And, and I could hear how there might be a way that people would listen to those sessions from a headspace, or if you're not attached to the energy, would you really get what was happening? And so I just think it's really good to share from different perspectives, because it's still intensely different to be a witness versus being in the hot seat, right? Because when it's your pain, it speaks to you, right? And so, I just think it's really beneficial for people to hear what it feels like and what it looks like from, the person receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what, are you interested in sharing any, like what real world shifts did you notice after that, if any? And, how has that shown up in your life since the session?
Well, I know I was like 2 days later, I think I was taking off to go teach a class in Alaska. And so it was just kind of like I hit the ground running from that. And then, it's a really beautiful class. I had a lot of women contact me. I know I put out a free session. I had a lot of women contact me, and that was really, again, just a beautiful affirmation of, I felt like what your intention was with it was to show how, we're real people. And here's an authentic, slice of life of the messy process of incarnation. And again, that could be, that was so inviting. I felt like the interactions I did have with the women I did some sessions with afterwards, it just set this gorgeous platform of vulnerability and authenticity. And I feel like there's a way that quality has been just emerging with just a lot more kind of effortless, easeful, like it's just become, I feel like it's already my life, but it feels like kind of like what happened in the session, like some veil just lifted and there's just a deeper dropping. And when I came back from that trip, things just got really accelerated in terms of a new work situation that came online that's just been amazing. Lots of new clients and referrals, and this experience of really getting to do my soul work. Like it feels like a whole new synthesis is coming in because of the caliber of people showing up. Like there's so much more of a ripeness, almost like a sophistication isn't really the right word, but like just people's capacity to really navigate some deep terrain. And so what that's calling forth from me just feels like all of the kind of the gifts and skills that have emerged from my own, like the credentials of what I've lived and died through, are being really utilized. And it just feels amazing. It's like that's what I'm here for. I feel like what brings me alive more than anything is getting to really do that soul work and really show up with people in the deepest way. So, and I was definitely feeling, sort of in correlation to what was showing up in that session. Before that, I was not feeling very anchored in my world. I was really questioning whether I should stay in the area I'm living in. I was struggling with just paying my rent and just basic 3D stuff. And some new relationships emerged, work relationships, also new collegial relationships that have been really inspiring and supportive. So there was a whole when I came back from Alaska, just this whole sense of like my world opening up and really landing more fully in an obvious, sense of, okay, I'm here for now at least, and really just plugging in, plugging into what's here.
I would love to just reflect, because you're using so much language that is reflective of the energetic, right? This is one of my favorite things about language and energy and how they correlate. But like when you're talking about plugging in and, people's deeper capacity for work and, landing and opening up, and like all of those things are really what we did with your soul inside your body, and what strikes me is I just, because I'm still in this process of enrolling people in magic school. And so I'm in many conversations a day with women who are on this path and they're deciding what's next. And so many of them are deciding about where to invest their money, right? And there's so much pressure and sexiness put out there around business school and coaching certification and, this process and that process to add to your toolbox. And I still think that largely we feel like this work is a luxury. Most people, you and I, know that this is the only work, right? But like, I think a lot of people are still getting the memo that, this, even with all of your certifications and 24 years of experience and, all of your expertise, there's no one who does what Ajaya does better than her, right? And that still wasn't actually getting her the clients she needed or the income she needed or, allowing her life to come together. And it really is like this soul work is the thing that has everything aligned. It's not that she learned how to do business differently. She did it the way she's always done it, but she's different. And so that's what has everything around her. It's like people can now find her and feel her and interact with her because she is now more fully aligned and alive and present and integrated. Would you say that, Ajaya?
Oh. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I just love having it as an example. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like what you're describing is the path, because what appears as the world is all just a reflection of our own consciousness. It's all a hologram. And so, and I think that becomes more and more obvious the more that we do the soul work and we embody. It's like the physics shift immediately. And I think that in and of itself, when you wake up inside of that, realization and that responsibility, life takes on a whole different kind of participation, I find. And I think that's one of the main things, obviously, both you and I are advocates of and teach and model. And but I feel like the nuances of that only continue to deepen and reveal. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the fun.
That is the fun. I was just telling someone that the other day, and I think the experience that I have is when I tell people that and they hear it for the first time, that this is the path and you'll have it your whole lifetime. Sometimes it's met with heaviness and like, oh, you mean there isn't a finish line? You mean I'm not going to get fixed? And to me, it's so liberating because it's like really there's one path. There's not, 50 different things you have to be attending to, but it's just this one path. And, the more you clear, like certainly it gets, easier in some ways and, you get quicker at kind of moving through and letting go and stuff like that. But, I actually welcome when a trigger comes up because it's like, oh, there's some nuance here that I couldn't see without this problem that's showing up, And so, yeah, for me, it's like the juiciest, most, just when I think I've got it, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'm good. Not like I know that I'm going to have more issues, but I always feel like, okay, I think I know the lay of the land. and then something dramatic happens and I'm like, oh my gosh, like my scale of 1 to 10 just got knocked completely out of the galaxy, and now I've got a whole new scale, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as we're alive, because I think it starts to become, you know, our quote personal alchemy. It's really it's the one, it's the big one, it's the big love, it's the big us, and clearly, you know, we're on an evolutionary journey. This mystery that we are, and so, you know, I've been kind of seeing it lately. It's like the core essence of life itself, let's just say, is this ever-present, you know, love, creatrix, eros. Lately, I love the word Shekinah. It's like in the Hebrew tradition, it's a word for love, but it's also, you know, it's like what's behind the sunshine's rays that are kissing the earth, that are sprouting new buds and blossoming, you know, new life. It's like that overflowing creative force that is just the pulse of life. And its motive, it's like it has an intention, it has a motive to bring all of itself home to itself. And so I think as, you know, more and more of our self sense that's in it's kind of frozen in time, in our history, in our storylines, our quote wounds, you know, the places where we got separated out from that connection to source. As those places thaw and return to that bigger love, it just keeps growing, and then it keeps expanding into new places, you know, that are frozen in time. That I just feel like almost, like I said, like what seems like my personal story or history, it's obvious that it's me and not me, or it's the bigger me, or I don't know, words are funny things, but it's the collective, you know. It just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's ancestral work and it's collective work, and I think there's just like you're saying, there's more and more of a surrender and a yes, because you just start to see that, you know, when something's vibrating or activating or triggered, or however you want to say it, you know, there's a gift of something, some lost, abandoned part that's coming home. And so there's more of a readiness to turn towards that and participate with our somatic response of, okay, how can I open here? How can I breathe? How can I be really intimate with what's happening?
Mm-hmm. Wow. So I think we should all just breathe into all that you just delivered there, because that was awesome. Right? So even if you didn't get that in your mind, just go ahead and breathe it into your system. There's an activation happening below the words. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I'd love to hear you talk more about I'm actually really moved by this idea of creation loving itself into creation. And I'm curious about, I've just been exploring something like this in my space, although I didn't realize love exactly was what I was opening up to. So in my system, it felt more like light, but I actually like the idea of it being love even more. And so I'm curious, from a somatic perspective, you know, what does that look like to connect with that mechanism that's happening? You know, when you feel separate, or when you feel like you have a body, or when you wish you didn't have a body, or do you know what I mean? Like, how does that play with our somatic experience? All of that creational love.
Yeah. Well, I don't usually think in cartoons. I don't usually get like cartoon visions, but let me describe a little cartoon that came to me a few days ago that I think kind of give a picture of what I'm pointing to. So So here's the cartoon. There's this big, just radiant presence of the love light, Eros, the omnipresent, all-pervasive, God, love, lover, whatever we want to call it. It's everywhere all the time. To me, it's life. It's the life. That it does express as light and is felt as love. And, but around it, it kind of wears this shroud that I've been lately calling, like wears the face of what I've been calling emptiness, which is essentially everything the ego structure turns away from, avoids feeling, because it's all of the places where, in our early imprints, where maybe we were vulnerable and we got hurt. Like I was saying, those places that are perhaps frozen in time, that are living in our tissues, because in the moment that there was the pain that happened, we were only able to meet it as best as we could, and so, the wisdom of the system is to repress it and cope and move on, and so it lives in the tissues. And I think what happens is, as we go through our lives, and as more of that conscious love principle is activated and becomes more of our true identity, then it just starts to shine on some of these layers. And I see them as layers that are, wrapped around the core of the heart, wrapped around the subtle core of the body. So sometimes they show up more around the belly or more around the heart, or even in the head center, or sometimes around the root. Anyways, as we start to wake up that active love, it starts to thaw. It's warmth, it's love, it's light. It starts to thaw some of those frozen places. And the irony, so back to the cartoon, is that, that big creatrix radiance is saying, come to me, come home to me. I just want to, have you be reabsorbed in me. I want you to become one with me. Like, I want to pulse this big love for everyone to know and remember. And the little ego structure's like, no, you're going to swallow me, you're going to annihilate me, And so we're running away from it. And this is what I see as all of the addictions that are happening, whether they're really obvious and gross, like substance addictions, or just the things that we in our culture have normalized. It's like we're all addicted to our cell phones, to media, to, there's a million ways we can distract and turn away from, to not have to feel, to numb out, to be busy, to be entertained, rather than turning towards and being vulnerable to where we're not in control, where we don't know what's going on. But it's like that's the portal, the necessary space to return to that love. And I think as we do that layer of what I'm calling emptiness, it just very quickly dissolves. It's like one moment, actually, of being able to be present to it and open our hearts and our bodies to it. It dissolves, and that energy becomes kind of reabsorbed or recomposted. And then, from my perspective, the Shekinah, the Eros, the big radiance just grows. And then we start to, take our seat in that true identity. And maybe, we spend some time just completely getting to abide and experience life from that seat. And then, another layer shows up, and there we go.
I love that. I love it. It's a new construct that I'm trying on. So my construct is similar in the idea of the soul path, so that we're, weaving through this infinite, medicine, and then gifts, right? And new layer, you come back for some more medicine, then you get to sit in the gifts. And I think this actually adds to that piece of, really the soul medicine path of infinity is sitting within the shining God light, right? The Eros. It's like each of our paths is inside of this larger mechanism that's loving us into remembering. You know, that's what it looks like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real kind of like flip of the switch that where it all just becomes so much more graceful, you know, is that realization that whatever's coming up in our humanness that feels messy and vulnerable and scary, and you know, like we don't want it, we don't want to feel it, we don't want to go there, is actually the necessary, like you're saying, it's what feels like the poison that actually is the medicine that grows our unique, you know, our unique flavor of that expression of that love motive that's going to direct itself through our lives and the ones we touch, and you know, the vocalization of where our body is living and those relationships, and so it's so important actually that we each turn towards and really, you know, discover that inner embrace and intimate capacity to be with, because that's really what love is. It bees with, you know, it doesn't try to change and fix and make wrong, and it's just saying, you know, come be with me, come home, be what you are. And then I just watch how it's like this contagious force, you know, it just wants everything and everyone to remember, to re-embody.
Yeah, it's so in alignment. I just had a healing session where I was the receiver yesterday, and it was along these lines of opening my system to receive this healing. And what I was being guided to was stop trying to fix it, you know, because of my abilities to see and to know and to move energy, I tend to approach my system the same way. So when I notice something's out of alignment, I want to track it, I want to move it. And I was receiving this beautiful lesson from my infant self and my system, the animal system itself, saying, do less. Do less. There's actually infinite wisdom already in here. And you can't access it when you're trying to do it or even know it. And so I was melting into deeper and deeper layers of surrender, and then finally a layer where I wasn't even tracking if it was healing or did it need healed or anything. It was just like it was totally, it kind of felt like coming out the back of my back, you know, almost like slipping behind and beneath. And then I could just feel like when I did that, the light rush in. And it was like I was being nourished by the light, which was a completely new experience for my system, because I tend to sit so firmly in the driver's seat of my system that I end up separating myself from the love and the light that's there.
Because there's no receptivity when we're being in the driver.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because it's both. Like somehow it's both and, you know, because there's, you know, lots of mystics that sit in the love and light soup all day long, right? And then they're missing that there is a driver's seat and there is an individuated experience to be had also, right? Like divinity loving itself as a separate thing. And so I think it's both and. Like I think we all have places where, you know, like, so for me, because I'm a great mother warrior, control is a big thing for me. So I'm getting my medicine, which is let go, you know, and then someone else might be getting a different message. Like a heroine might be getting a message that's like integrate, you know, like there's nothing to separate from. And a mystic might be getting, you know, be yourself being loved by the divine, right? So that like infinite mirrors.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, because, I guess I've got the mystic template. I've been actually noticing more of the other space of just more of an embodiment of power, and it's more about speaking truth and being more directive.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's like a way that's trustworthy, or at least for me, it's trustworthy when it feels clearly connected to the bigger love,
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm backed. There's major backing. It's not just like my little ego creature, like, I got to do this. I got to make this happen.
That's so great. This is what I actually love about hanging out with people who are opposite of me, right? So in a lot of ways, the warrior and the mystic are sort of yin and yang. And I learned so much by being with Ajaya's system, because what she just described is the opposite of my experience. So in my experience, I'm the big love, right? I'm the big power. And then it's like, I don't know, is there anything that could support this big of power? Right? And she's more like, I'm totally tapped in. I got all this big love. Why would I individuate? And so we get to play with like, what's that like? What's that like to feel like that you're hugely backed, literally, I love it. My system's happy even entertaining that. Like, what? Let's explore that some more. It also, one of the things that I'm curious about Ajaya, we've never talked about this, but Ajaya was raised in a Sufi family. And I've always wanted to ask you, what is that like? What is that like to be raised in love and connection? And for those who don't know, maybe you should even say what Sufis are, but.
Yeah. I think it was a very precious, kind of auspicious way to come into the world. Actually, my mom connected with the Sufi tradition when I was about 6. And she remarried, and we moved to a place called the Abode in upstate New York, which is still there, and it's a Sufi community, and it's a tradition that comes out of kind of a synthesis. There's different kinds of Sufism. This particular tradition was through a man named Pir Vilayat Inayat Khan, who brought Sufism to the West. And, a lot of people know that tradition through the poet Rumi. It's a very mystical tradition that is a lot about celebration and singing and dancing and really just like lovers of God, just very devotional. And so as a child, and even before that, my mom was very on a very deep spiritual path. So that was always what I had come in with. And, I think my experience is interesting. It's kind of mixed in hindsight. I mean, as I've journeyed through my life, I think I had a really deep imprint of that connection to the divine and, just innate connection with God that was just always there and always cultivated and supported. And there's a lot of, beauty to that. And I was very sort of isolated from the world, and went to like private Sufi schools when I was a kid, and didn't have much exposure to Western culture and just the matrix. So I think that's why my life, my main challenge has been more about really navigating how to be in the world, and but that essential template, I think it's accurate how you tuned into me as a mystic, because that was very much, what I was born into, and what has always felt like home for me. Just almost, if those of you who are familiar with like Rumi's poetry, it's very much speaking to the paradox of that takes you into the heart. It's like all that it is, and the mystery of being alive that we can't grok with the mind. We can only understand through the heart. And I guess that's probably the most essential way I can speak to that tradition. And so they embrace everything, all paths that point, to that same one place. And I do feel like that is essentially, my core and where I live from. And I do notice it's pretty different, actually, than where most people live from. And it used to cause me a lot of pain and separation. And, I feel like these days it's fairly integrated, and I feel much more integrated in terms of being in the world and just finding my unique way to be here, which is pretty different, in terms of not having the same kind of education and training as to how to be in the matrix. I feel like I just sort of in a haphazard way found my own grace. So I don't know if that answers your question or if you
it's
specific, but
it's so beautiful. And one of the things that I also am getting present to as these beautiful women from around the world come into magic school, and they're so different, right? We really have this great representation of all of the different soul paths. And, what I notice is there's such a, I don't even know if it's westernized. I almost think it's everywhere, but definitely westernized view of success, right? And so even though people have these different paths, there's almost like one barometer of success, which is, do you have an online business that's making a lot of money? And if it's not that, then people are apologetic about the gifts they have, the places they've been expanding, and everything else kind of get marginalized, And one of the things that I'm really becoming interested in calling bullshit on is this idea that money is some measure of success and everything else is less than that, because I think that is such a pervasive illusion that has us all staying so stuck. And what I'm loving is this conversation where we can really show up as these beautiful examples of, you can hear the wisdom in Ajaya's path. And, as I'm listening to you, darling, I'm just feeling like, I aspire to attain a heart space and a connection with divinity that is as mature and advanced and complex as the one that you have, like complex yet simple. And, and I'm a person who has a lot of money and a lot of outward worldly success. And so, those things are equal. Like, they're just equal because we're on these paths, And so I just want to take this moment to say that again, because I say it all the time that, the soul paths are really just flavors, and we don't make chocolate wrong for not tasting like strawberry. It's like, of course it, tastes like that because it's chocolate. And so that is really where I feel there's this empowerment to be had with all of us embracing the fullness of the path that we're on without feeling, public or private shame that it doesn't look like something else. And then really just getting to the play of navigating our own soul path, being who we came here to be, embodying our soul at the deepest levels, healing the illusion of the wounding that we came in with, so we can move into the fullness of what we really are, Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's been a piece lately. I've been really enjoying opening up around. I think one of the core sort of like ego illusions is, I'm either too much or I'm not enough. I've definitely met that place in myself, and I see it in most everyone. And how then we want to manage or micromanage our behavior so that we can, not push people away or by being too much, or we try to be more to think that we're going to pull something in. And, I started to see the whole thing as this ego trap of actually hiding out from the just owning the radiance of my like dignified awakening, of just that I'm more than enough. And like, how could I be, it doesn't even, that equation doesn't exist there in that space of just sitting in wholeness, and the embrace of, like you're saying, your unique expression. It's like, how can you compare that? Or just the equation of not enough or too much doesn't exist there. But it's like a loop that I've many, many times, gotten in the trance of and believed whatever, the mind is spinning out about it. And lately I've been really just really waking up in that space and noticing what does it feel like to just really rest and abide in that seat that's just that dignified seat of essence that's just awake to who it is, and whose nature just wants to be the radiance that is life sustaining, and that wants to be that active love principle. It's just available. It's like it's available to serve. It's not about me, right? It's about the big one coming home.
I love the feeling of that. It's not about me. It's about the big one coming home. That's it. That is totally it. I was just saying something so similar on a meditation I was leading this morning, which is like when you get in this space of being, it sort of handles everything, because when you're in your own unique fingerprint, there's nothing else to do. It's like, that's it. And that's everything. Such good medicine, sister. And I noticed that we are...
I love you.
I know. I love you too.
It's fun to just get to hang out and talk with Jody and talk about the big love and just be it together. Thank you so much.
My heart feels so expanded right now. It's just happy and full.
Me too.
Me too. So I noticed we're here at the top of the hour, and I'd love to just actually... I feel like, Ajaya, I was just asking Source, like, how do we close? And it feels like you have something, or Source is going to deliver something through you. So if you have any last thoughts or, whatever's wanting to come through, I'll just toss to you to bring us to a close. How does that sound?
Sure. I was just feeling, as you named, this happiness, this joy emerging, and I'm feeling that in my own body. I wanted to just invite whoever is listening to allow a deeper receptivity to just feeling the field that we've been weaving, co-creating, and to just take a breath and really just soften into the center of the chest, into your own heart space. And just connect with whatever quality of radiant space, of love, of warmth, that inner smile. Maybe we could just complete by just resting there for a moment. And I feel this sense of like this inner bow, just like my head is bowing to my heart. And just a gratitude for the miracle of life, this mystery of this great mystery that we are. And then just a sense of letting that drop down into the belly and the pelvis, and allowing that that light, that ignition, that spark to just infuse the core of our bodies, all the way from the root to the heart and even into the center of the head, just letting the whole inner life light up in this gesture of gratitude. So I'm just feeling this web of interconnection to all those that are listening and showing up, whether it's in this moment live or in another moment, just feeling this field rippling and this hologram continuing of the acknowledgement of the big love that we're resting in together. Thank you for the invitation, Jody, and just thank you for you. Thank you for just the precious, gorgeous rock star that you are. Such a phenomenal being.
Thank you. Thank you, my love. I can feel the ripples opening and opening and opening, and it feels like such a beautiful way for us to bring ourselves to this holiday pause. We're actually taking the next 2 weeks off from the live radio show and, heading out into this experience of reuniting with our families and being, hopefully with ourselves. We have the winter solstice coming up, which is a time to go inward and to be with in the same way that love bees with. And so thank you, Ajaya, for setting that vibration for us and weaving such a beautiful field, and for all that you are to me and to all of us. So until next time, everyone, so much love.
So much love.
Yeah. Bye.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. An inspiration, for God's sake. Illumination, for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake.